All right, well, it's time now for Keller at Large.
Here's Jon Keller.
Well, good morning. Lots of interesting political news on the national front this past week. And if you're interested, I invite you to check out on CBSBoston.com our weekly online-only discussion of national news events of the week gone by. We call it What a Week. But for the purposes of this segment, we're taking a look at what's going on up on Beacon Hill with two ace political reporters from the indispensable wire service of state politics and policy, the State House News Service. On your left, Katie Lannan, and on your right, Matt Murphy. Katie, Matt, welcome.
Hey, John.
Good to have you here. So, a couple of weeks ago here, we heard concerns about the state's fiscal stability from Eileen McEnany of the Mass Taxpayers Foundation. Now we're seeing fresh warning signs. The House passed a spending bill for some short-term items, energy assistance, that kind of thing, that had more than $30 million less than what Governor Baker had asked for. And the House members citing lagging tax collections. Now, $30 million isn't much in the grand scheme of things, but Katie, let me start with you on this. What does that tell us about how they're thinking, their level of apprehension about the fiscal situation?
Well, you're exactly right, John, that when you're talking about $40 billion, $30 million is as crazy as it sounds to, you know, someone who manages a household budget, not that much money. Right. But one of the things we heard yesterday from the new House Budget Chief, Rep. Aaron Michaelwitz of the North End, is that it's time to be watchful. We do have state tax collections running below projections, and while no one's quite sounding the alarm and heading for the hills, people are keeping an eye on the situation. We're not all the way through the fiscal year, so it's a little early to say how exactly things will come out.
Well, meanwhile, you got all sorts of pressures on the budget, like always. Already, now the T is looking for another fare hike. Good luck with that. The hearings have begun on that. Pressure is building around this issue, Matt, and meanwhile, the millionaire's tax is back. It's been refiled once again. Are we heading toward a tax hike showdown?
Yeah, I mean, it certainly looks like it. I don't know how big the showdown is going to be. It'll depend on whether or not I think either branch of the legislature puts a major tax hike on the table. But when I spoke to DeLeo earlier this past week, when they were getting ready to debate the budget, he said, you know, not the point of panic yet on the budget. And if you talk to the administration, even $400 million, which is where they're currently below their revenue estimates, this is less than a 1% of total state spending. This is something that the administration thinks it can manage through. The question is then, where do you get the extra money if revenues aren't coming in? There's no surplus to spend on transportation, to spend on education. You've seen the governor put some modest tax proposals to generate some money in his budget proposal, but we have yet to see whether or not there's an immediate push from the legislature and Democrats for a bigger tax plan that's not the millionaire's tax, which is 4 years away.
In the past, between the opposition of the governor and resistance from Speaker DeLeo on the House side, major broad-based tax hikes have been non-starters. The Speaker himself seemed to hint that that might not continue to be the case. What's your read on that, Katie? Is it possible the House might be a softer target this time for the tax hike proponents?
Well, it's definitely going to be interesting to see. We haven't seen new taxes ruled out this year. Like in some years, you know, that's done as early as December before the budget building process really begins. And there has not been that hard line no from the House. And we do have a new budget chief there, as we mentioned, who is kind of going to be working for his first time through. We don't know exactly where he's going to go yet. He hasn't ruled them out either, but isn't, you know, beating the drum for higher taxation.
And, you know, an urban rep, Representative Miklowitz, you know, conceivably might be more open to that. What's your feel for this, Matt?
Yeah, there's a good chance, I think, that we fall back into the pattern that we saw the last time with legislators looking ahead to this millionaire's tax as the sort of panacea for revenue and try to get through. If you look at the big $1 billion climate change proposal that the Speaker rolled out just a week ago, he's proposing to borrow that money. You even have the Republican governor coming forward with a similar $1 billion climate change bill that has some new tax revenue in it to pay for it. The Speaker looking to borrow that money over many years. So that could be a signal of the Speaker continuing to not really have a big appetite for a huge, big, broad-based tax increase.
Okay, we'll take our break and we'll continue our conversation about what's going on up on Beacon Hill with Katie Lannan and Matt Murphy of the State House News Service in just a moment. So stay with us, please.